Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tennyson E. Stead. And this guy
is Gerard J. Marzilli.
Coming to you with another 8-sided vlog. And today I'm going to talk a little bit, and Gerard's going to maybe talk a little bit too about a project we're working on while we're in development on quantum theory, because feature films can take time and resources to build, and gathering those resources...
Centuries.
Maybe not centuries.
All right. Well,
but certainly...
I won't live centuries.
No. But...
yes, I will.
We want the... because Gerard's going to download himself. There's a plan. So, speaking of plans, let's have something going on while we're in development with quantum theory that we can crowdfund and that we can bring to the festivals and that we can show you guys, and we can finally take you guys to the movies, regardless of whether or not things go on our timetable with regards to the development of quantum theory. So, one character that Gerard and I have been working on together for quite some time that we're finally developing into a feature called Making the GAMP, Making the Great American Motion Picture, is a character by the name of David Allen Rifkin. So I'm just going to start by telling the story.
Okay.
And then you can interject as you see fit, and then we'll get into what Smoking Hollywood was. And does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay.
So, like, you talk.
And you stare.
And I go, ah! And I interject like that every once in a while?
That works.
Okay.
Okay. So, I not too long after the brain injury, I was at home feeling sorry for myself, woeing myself, you know, and thinking about how if I'd just come to Hollywood in the 90s when there was all this money around and people like Jim Jarmusch and Quentin Tarantino were just allowed to make movies, and Kevin Smith, everything would have been perfect and I wouldn't have the problems that I have. And obviously that's not true, but that's what I was telling myself. And then I imagined this one video, for some reason, just popped into my head on the video shelf that doesn't exist, but that inevitably should have, called Pizza Man, because back in the 90s everything was Glimmer Man and Pizza Man. Pizza Man is a movie that you can expect to see on the video shelf, starring David Schwimmer as a pizza delivery guy in basically a terrible and passive script about this pizza guy getting dragged as he delivers pizzas through this odyssey of whatever craziness and wackiness ensues. There's a mob boss played by, you know, probably Harvey Keitel, and I'm sure half the cast of Reservoir Dogs is in it. Steve Buscemi's in it, and you know they're chasing him around because of the pizza he delivered, and he's getting sucked up into this mob thing. And Bai Ling is like a dominatrix, and she whips him.
And for those of you kids who don't know, there used to be these things that Tenny was referring to called video stores, called one of them known as Blockbuster. They used to spend hours and hours and hours and hours every night in college and high school going through and finding interesting movies to watch, kind of like a whole store filled with Redbox, or if Netflix were in a building.
Right.
So that is what Tenny is describing. So anyone who is 20 or years of age or under, who was not born when I started college, this is what this is all about.
Right.
It was fun. And
in the middle of the 90s, they would start buying volumes, whole shelves full of these independent movies that weren't very good often. You know, because they figured it was going to be...
Before VOD.
Yep, because there was going to be the next Kevin Smith movie and they didn't want to miss out. And so I just imagined like a whole rack of Pizza Man that just for some reason didn't exist. And Gerard comes home right in the middle of this reverie of mine, and I'm like, Gerard, we dodged a fucking bullet. And I explained this whole thing, and you said no. You said,
we didn't. It happened.
It happened.
It happened.
Because there's no way it didn't happen.
You're the one living in a fucking dream, Tennyson Stead. Because I know it happens on August 9th, 1997. So my explanation was like this movie sounds too much like an actual 90s movie on the stores, in the shelves of the video stores in the 90s to have not been made. And I declared that time travelers must have gone back in time, Terminators must have gone back through time and killed David Allen Rifkin, thus sparing him, or sparing us from his evil.
Right. Because it went on. He was successful. In the late 90s, he did all these like M. Night Shyamalan knockoff twist ending movies that didn't really work out, but then in 2004, maybe 2001, he directs a big CGI intensive remake of Critters starring Jason Statham and Ice Cube that does really well. And then he goes on from there. He does a movie based on The Tick that isn't very good, but it had a lot of CGI, and that was important at the time. And then, you know, now he's doing all the ride movies, the theme park ride movies, you know, and he's doing Dino Riders. And we had enough. We sent Terminators.
Yep.
So one of the things that you've heard us talk about, you know, in previous blogs is that it can be a bad idea to talk shit about people within the industry, despite the fact that oftentimes there's horrible industry practices. So we've sort of taken it to ourselves.
We can totally talk shit about a filmmaker that actually does not exist in our timeline.
Exactly.
By making him exist in our timeline.
So we blame David for basically everything that was wrong with Hollywood for probably a period of at least 3 years. And then what happened was we just started developing the character, and we ended up doing these video blogs of David teaching people how to make movies the Hollywood way, called Smoking Hollywood, which you can find on youtube.com/8sidedfilms.
Keep in mind, no movies actually really get made during the course of this series, but it is fascinating.
Yeah.
And it teaches you about Hollywood.
It does. It does. And so the idea behind the movie is that David has been kicked out of this big budget movie based on an 80s cartoon that he's in charge of by his manager, because everybody hates David. But David is a symptom of a larger disease. David is, in fact, very Hollywood. He's not Hollywood. So it's not like he's the problem. He's a reflection. He's a symptom. So his manager is just as shitty, his agent is just as shitty in different ways, and we're going to populate this Hollywood with people who operate on David's level, except for David's assistant, who he calls Short Bus, which is actually, David calls him Short Bus very deliberately to maintain his edgy brand. So there's a whole, there's an actual video on why you should undermine underrepresented cultures to keep your edginess. We covered that in the documentary series. Thank you. But Short Bus doesn't know that Hollywood is as bad as it is. He still has a lot of belief. His parents they own still a video store in Nebraska that's failing, and they're not telling him this because they don't want to confuse and scare him while he's trying to make it big in Hollywood. He just got this job working for this big Hollywood director. And so Short Bus is going to convince David to go back to his independent roots, break out of the studio system, and do something on his own. And David is inherently a virulent train wreck of a human being who's going to poison everything that comes his way. So David's building this development process on lies and blackmail and horrific screenwriting and total irresponsibility on every level.
Because it works.
Because it works. And Short Bus is going to try and make something wonderful because he still believes. And this movie is going to be about all of these monsters just crushing the life out of Short Bus while we sit there and laugh because we don't know what else to do as an audience. And I think it's gonna, I think it's gonna be pretty funny.
Well, he thinks it's really funny. Anyway, yeah, this thing is really just kind of like, I think the way I see it is, it's our response to the whole the scandals going on in Hollywood,
yes.
the overextensions, the sexual harassment, just
the fraud,
business
dealings,
and some of the bad things that are endemic of Hollywood, not only of Hollywood but of America right now, unfortunately, and possibly the world. In that you can get by just taking a very easy shortcuts, that there's a magic bullets for everything, that you don't really need to do any work. Yep. And unfortunately, this is being proven true in the world leaders that are getting into power right now. So we think it's a very good time for this story to be told, and just kind of take a look at who are these people, where do they come from, what kind of forces of nature are they, and what do they do to the people around them.
And why do people follow them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What makes them so compelling,
Because they are compelling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people want to hang out with David for some reason.
Yeah, well, people want to talk. Donald Trump was a famous reality star before he was president.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. There's a thing that people have, and if we can shine a light on it and make it as transparent, because the thing that's interesting about David to me is that most people don't have a lot of self-awareness when they engage in these behaviors. They don't understand what they're doing most of the time, I think. David really understands it. He has a complete, transparent understanding of the tactics he's using and why they are disempowering to other people, and he leverages them very deliberately. And he explains them in the videos. He's so aware of it that he actively, he doesn't have a lot of attachment to it. he'll throw a fight just to throw a fight, you know, throw a hissy fit, and then turn around and talk to his manager like nothing happened because he doesn't understand, because it was a tactic. It was a thing that he did to try and get a response. He got his response. He startled people in the way he wanted to, and he moves on with it.
That sounds familiar. Where if I have seen that done before?
Yeah, exactly.
Somewhere on Twitter or CNN.
Yeah.
Or both. I don't know.
Yeah. So that's a project that we are working on. If you know, and it would be a stroke of fortune if timing on Quantum Theory makes this movie impossible. We'll just go ahead and shoot Quantum Theory, and we'll do Making the GAMP, Making the Great American Motion Picture at a later time. But it's a script I'm working on now. I'm halfway through the first act already, blasting right through it. I'll start passing it to Gerard. We'll probably pass it back and forth because this is something that it's going to take a lot of hate, to be honest, to get right. And then we'll bring the cast together. We'll start rehearsing it, and we'll put together, you know, an independent movie that I think will wind up feeling a lot like something like Curb Your Enthusiasm as it comes out. I think it's going to wind up...
But a really shitty Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh, it's dreadful. It's
black-souled
yes.
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Which is the you know, pull the mask aside. Let these people be self-aware of the tactics they're using. Let them show their true faces and not care. And what does that... And that is satire. It is funny. Like, it's more extreme. You know what I'm saying? And it's absurd that these people are succeeding. And the fact that it's absurd makes it funny. But it's also heartbreaking and dangerous. So, and in that sense, it's interesting. In that sense, it's challenging and it's hard. And, you know, I think, well, we'll see what happens. But it's in the works, and I've been alluding to it in various social media formats and stuff, and I figured it was a good time to come in and do a blog about it, and I just so happened that Gerard came home right as I was about to start my blog, so I asked Gerard to come in and do the blog with me. Thank you, Mr. Marzilli.
Oh, sure. My pleasure.
Any last thoughts on David?
Last thoughts on David. Don't be like David. But go watch the show. It's Smoking Hollywood. You might be surprised to find out, if you have spent any time in Los Angeles like I have and Tenny has, that you might actually start hearing some things that are a bit confusing because you're like, wait, is this real? Is this a joke? Is this both?
I've been given this advice.
And it is true. It is both. I mean, we've been given this advice. So, you know, check out the world. Check out how it is. See, you know, if you're interested, see if you... find examples of this in your own life and in politics, because it's out there, and it is the reason why we are where we're at. So I hope you'll watch. It is also very funny too, and it's not all awful. Well, I mean, it is.
It is all awful, but the awfulness is what's funny.
Yes, right.
You know, thanks for watching. Give us a like if you like these videos. Give us a thumbs up. Make sure to click the subscribe button if you want to see more from the 8-Sided blog and the other content that we're producing. And we will be rolling out a social media as we figure out what exactly is going on with Quantum Theory, and we sort of decide where the schedules and the timetables are going to start to fit. We're going to start rolling out a social media game on David Allen Rifkin and him communicating with you, and we'll have in-character stuff because it seems like a waste not to. More videos. We'll be probably launching a crowdfunding campaign for this movie as well. So there will be tons of content coming your way. And in the meantime, thanks for watching and have yourselves a great evening. Take care. Wait, goodbye, Gerard. Goodbye.